I'm Claude Arpels' first son. I was born in 1940, about a year after my father came for the last time to this country after the World's Fair. My grandfather's Julien. He was the clown. He really is the Arpels that had the great humor of the family. He was always doing magic tricks, and I think his greatest appeal to me as a grandfather was his happiness. As far as the store is concerned, he probably had the best eye for stones of all of the family. At least that's what my father would say. My father, as I'm sure is well known, also learned to paint and had a very good eye for color and had a very good eye for stones. But Julien, really, his great talent was stone color. He had marvelous sense of color. Louis was his brother, and Louis's great charm was his alter ego personality. He was a really elegant rogue, perfectly dressed, handled the selling with an aplomb that was absolutely marvelous. And he sat me down one day and he says, "Johnny, let me tell you why I'm such a good seller." He says, "Because I love every single piece. I sell what I love." And he said, "We create the design. The stone we choose gives the piece its spirit, and the woman who wears it gives it life." Louis spent about, I would say, 45% of the time in New York, the rest in Paris. He was mainly in New York during the winter time. He stayed at the Plaza Hotel, had his own apartment there. My grandfather spent more time in New York than Louis did. He would spend 3-4 months in Europe and most of the time in New York. Miss Arpels, my grandfather's sister, Kiki Van Cleef, she was a lovely, charming person, and probably of that generation, next to my grandfather, had another great sense of humor. Pierre's greatest talent was working with his hands. He had an absolutely fabulous ability at carpentry. In a way, geometry. He could put something together beautifully. And I think this helped him with the Shah of Iran crown, where my understanding is the jewels could not leave Iran. So the crown had to be designed with Pierre doing the design and the manufacturing, I believe, at the atelier in Paris, but the stones had to stay in Iran. His ability to build and his ability to see perspective, I think, is what allowed that to come out as well as it did, because he had to remember the perspective in Paris of that which was in Iran and make it fit. Jacques was a great administrator. He ran Paris. Essentially, New York was my father's domain. And although at the beginning, jewelry and stock came from the Paris store, eventually when we moved to 744 Fifth Avenue and had our own workshop, the stock was actually separate. Paris had their stock, New York had our stock. Dad started the concept of the boutique, and he came up with the concept of bringing the same quality of the high-end jewelry down to make the richer middle class be able to afford something with the Van Cleef name and with the Van Cleef quality. I think Louis in New York, Louis brought style. The Americans really appreciated the savoir-faire and the finesse. And Louis brought that. And he brought it to New York. Now, the story of the ballerina pin is, as my father told me, and that is that one night he had a dream of Jules dancing. And he went to Balanchine and gave him the concept, and Balanchine took it and developed the ballet.